Welcome back. Hope you're all well. Just taking a break from packaging, so I thought I would show you all rapid fire what's sold this week. Over the course of the week, I sold approximately 37 items for a gross total of £1,230. Now, after eBay fees of approximately 30%, that leaves me with £946 or thereabouts, which is an average sale price of £33 per item. So let's take a look at what sold and what they sold for. First up, we have an oil rubbed solid brass decorative ornamental horse. I picked it from an antique shop and this sold for £35. Now you might be asking, what's oil rubbed? Well, it's a technique to make brass look like bronze. You can see some of the bright brass shining through where it's been handled over the years, but it's still a beautiful item and sold quickly once listed. Next up is a 1950s Grundig microphone. I did have it looked at, but they were unable to test it, so it was sold untested as seen. I believe it's from a reel-to-reel tape machine, but I haven't seen one in action, so I can't guarantee that. And I achieved £20 for it. Third on the list is a solid brass sanctuary bell. They're called sanctuary bells because they were used in churches or religious centres, and they often have Latin inscriptions around them, which you can see. It's solid brass with a ringer inside. I picked it up from an antique centre, so it just shows you can find these items if you dig deep enough, and it sold for £13. Here we have an absolutely stunning oval antique tiger wood mirror. When I say tiger wood, I'm referring to the stripy wood around the mirror plate. It's a hard wood and is extremely dense and resistant to many problems that pine faces, such as wide splits and excessive splintering, and it comes from South America. It has bevel glass and a moulded frame. The moulded frame is produced by running the wood through heated rollers, which compresses the wood fibres into the design that you require. The mirror plate is in really good condition, but I must say, don't disregard mirrors if they are foxed, as some people actually really like that look. It was collection only, as I don't ship glass or ceramics anymore, and it was listed for quite a while before a local buyer decided it was the mirror for them. I took an offer of £40. I could have achieved more if I'd been willing to ship it, but with my experience of couriers, I wasn't prepared to risk damaging it in transit. This antique solid brass tray is reminiscent of Damascus ware, and by that I mean metalware that has 2 or 3 different types of metal incorporated into it. If you're interested in the specific details, Damascus ware is the process of damascening, which is the art of inlaying different metals into one another, typically gold or silver, into a darkly oxidised steel background, for example. This can produce intricate patterns. The English term damascening or Damascus ware comes from a perceived resemblance to the rich tapestry patterns of Damascus silk. It's definitely Middle Eastern and highly decorative in appearance, and these types of item sell really well. So as ever, if I'm passing them at the flea market or at the Malvern Antiques Fair, I always pick them up. I sold it as part of a job lot and took, to be honest, a low offer of £25. I could have definitely achieved more if I'd hung on for the buyer at the end of the rainbow. But because this particular buyer bought so much stock off me, I thought, fair enough, let's do the deal. And at the end of the day, I still made a profit on it. Next we have a solid brass urn or vase. It's modern and it's spun brass, so probably came out of India, judging by the engraving around the rim. I picked this up from an antique centre and it sold for £22. Next on the list is this metal stag head coat hook. I say metal because I'm not entirely sure what kind of metal it is, believe it or not. It's definitely an alloy. It has some magnetic properties, but it's not steel. It has a bronze or bronze gilt effect finish. It's always popular when I take it out to markets, but nobody's actually put their hand in the pocket to buy it yet, until now. And it sold online for £10. This girdle-stemmed, solid brass candlestick was part of the Worcestershire hoard. It's quite modern and has been listed for quite some time now. Single candlesticks are always more difficult to sell than pairs, and this particular candlestick sold for £10. There's no great age to it, but it is a nice piece and attractive and decorative. Here's a classic piece of work in stock. It's a silver-plated cockerel that is used on a tabletop to support a menu or a place marker. They come in different sizes, and this one's quite large, being about 6 inches tall. I sourced it from an antique fair in Worcestershire. They can stick around, to be honest with you, when you list them, but this one sold quite quickly and I took an offer of £14. Here we have an interesting pair of white metal vases. They're definitely Middle Eastern in origin, and I would speculate that they're from the Egypt area. I sold them for £22 and picked them up from the Malvern flea market a couple of months ago. This white metal fly ashtray are typically from the Italy area. You strike your match on the back of the wings and the ashtray part is in the body. You can see it displayed here with the wings raised. They do fold down flat. It sold for £24 and I picked it from an antique fair. The AVC motto is affordable, decorative, functional, and I think this particular item ticks all those boxes. Another piece of work in stock, a solid brass vase with a pierced rim. I picked this up from the Malvern flea market and it sold for £11. This is an unusual little piece. It's a miniature brass coal scuttle. It came as part of a job lot I bought at an auction and I sold it for £10, which is a good return on the investment. This pair of marble and brass candlesticks also came from the same job lot I acquired at the auction. They're particularly attractive in my opinion, and I couldn't find anything similar online. I sold them for £22. There is an argument I could have achieved more for them, but I took the offer to move them on. This lovely vintage ebonised bar stool sold for £34. I picked it up from an antiques emporium along with several other items, so I was able to bundle them all up and get a really good price. I know for a fact the buyer was really happy with it as they sent me a message saying it was exactly what they're looking for. If ever you see small, solid, vintage or antique stools, always pick them up because they sell really well. This relatively modern pair of brass alloy goblets sold quite quickly once listed and I achieved £10 for them. I think that was an offer, if memory serves me correctly. They're a decorative pair of goblets. You can see the grapes hanging from vines, and so they definitely fulfil the decorative part of the AVC motto. This lovely little brass horse was one of 3 I purchased from an antique centre. It's neoclassical in design and has some age to it, as you can see from the verdigris that is slowly appearing around its feet and head. It's a very nice casting with lots of good detail and is freestanding. If they'd had 10 more of them, I would have bought them. The previous 2 sold really quickly, but this one has sat around for a few weeks. However, it's now sold. And I took an offer of £17. Another piece of work in stock. This is a silver-plated fruit bowl. You can see from the pierced design around the rim that it's Art Nouveau in style. So this would date it approximately 1890 to around 1910. So a genuine antique, and it sold quickly as part of a job lot bought by one buyer. To move this on, I accepted an offer of £14. This solid brass beetle is only small, a couple of inches long, but it shows some age, as you can see from the verdigris that's ingrained into the detail. It sold for £16.90. As I said, it's solid brass and really heavy, and will probably make a nice little decorative ornament or desktop paperweight. This was the second of the 2 brass beetles that I sold to the same buyer. I'm not sure why, but I accepted an offer of £12 for this one. I think they would both make really good little curios and would look equally good in a cabinet. This engraved brass teapot was a bit of a slow burner. You can see from the design it most likely came from India. I think, if memory serves me correctly, I purchased it online and probably broke even on this sale, taking an offer of £11 to move it on. Here we have a modern pair of barley twist metal candlesticks. Again, I think they're a brass alloy as they don't really have any magnetic properties, which means there's no ferrous content, but I'm not 100% certain what the metal is. They are modern, but they're decorative and, as you can see, functional. I took an offer of £16 for these. One of my favourite sales of the week. When I bought it, I thought it was cold cast bronze, which is resin with bronze powder in it. But I've been reliably informed by other dealers that it is in fact purely resin. However, I did sell it for £24 and I think the quality speaks for itself. It's quite large, about 9 inches tall, not quite life size, unless you're a very little person I suppose, but I really like this, and at first I thought I could get quite a bit more for it, but once it was decided it was resin, I took an offer of, as I've said, £24. Next up we have a vintage bar stool with a red vinyl seat. It's in really good condition. I think the legs, the wood I should say, is beech, and there is no damage at all to the vinyl seat. I achieved the asking price of £34.30. If you didn't watch my previous film and you're wondering why 30 pence, it's because I drop my prices listed online by 1% each week. And this does end up leaving me with a few odd asking prices, but I'm not really bothered by that, and it doesn't look as though the buyers are either. I also think it's a good tactic to drop your prices by 1% each week, as eventually they will hit a price point where they will sell, or at least you'll get offers. Here we have a small, solid brass, vintage or possibly antique Dutch bell. I'm assuming it's Dutch based on the style of the hat that the lady is wearing. It has a cast iron bell inside, and these sorts of items can be slow burners, i.e. listed for a while, but they all sell eventually as they are decorative and functional at the same time. I took an offer of £11. This was the highest price item of the week. It sold for £120 and is an adjustable wireframe female mannequin. It looks quite sci-fi to me and reminds me of the film I, Robot starring Will Smith. However, given it stood on a pole, I can't see it attacking me anytime soon. I'd actually had this stored away for a couple of years, but it literally sold within 1 or 2 days of it being listed. And for once, I did list it as an auction, and the winning bid was in fact the maiden bid. This is an interesting little lot. Absolutely no money at all. I think I achieved £4.99 plus postage. It's a series of about 20 black and white photos of stage, screen, film, theatre stars. What I liked about it was the fact that they're not caricatures, they are actually photos of the ladies, and I think it's really evocative of that 1940s, 1950s period. This pair of solid brass 20th century candlesticks sold for £17. You'll see another similar pair that I also acquired at the same time from a car boot local to me. As I said earlier, pairs of candlesticks always sell better, so I don't actually buy single candlesticks anymore. However, the single candlesticks do sell, but it takes an awfully long time. Here we have an interesting engraved solid brass tankard. It's armorial, and by that I mean it has a coat of arms on the front. You can just about see it in the lower panel, but it doesn't appear to belong to any particular noble family, so I do think it was an import, probably from India, and is purely decorative. It was part of a consignment deal I negotiated with a seller, and I took an offer of £14. A third of the profit will go to the seller, but I'm still happy with that, as it's moved it on and put a few quid in my back pocket to go out and buy more stock. This is a lovely little item. It's a brass lizard, quite long, about 9 to 12 inches, very heavy, and would make a fantastic paperweight. It's definitely vintage, possibly antique, and I took an offer of £22. I'm not sure what the provenance is, but the detail in the casting is very good, which did help to keep its value up when I listed it. You can actually get life castings of lizards, and they can sell for an extremely high price. But I'm pretty sure this is a cast model, or at least I hope, because if it is, I've given it away. I took an offer and it sold for £22. Here we have a solid bronze pincushion in the form of a pig. Now you can see that the insert cushion, the pincushion component part of it, is missing, but whoever's bought it could either replace that themselves or use it as a trinket dish. Loads of character, 4 or 5 inches in length, very heavy, would make an equally good desktop paperweight. I took an offer of £20. Here's another example of oil rubbed brass. In other words, it's treated to give it the appearance of bronze. By oil rubbing brass, it does darken it considerably to give it this lovely bronze appearance, or patina. Always do the magnet test, as you know from some of my previous films, to make sure that these types of item aren't purely steel. So it definitely has a little bit more value, at least scrap value, in the form of it being I think a brass alloy. Pretty sure it's not bronze. Classical in design, and I took an offer of £25. Here we have a very nice Repoussé style brass planter from, I would suggest, India or thereabouts. Repoussé is quite an art form. It's where the craftsman hand hammers the design into the metalware, producing the design in relief, which makes it very tactile to the touch and gives it a 3D appearance. These always sell incredibly well, so I will pile as many of these as I possibly can into the back of the car when I go to Malvern or any other flea market. I took an offer of £30, which I suspect is a little bit on the low side, but it was one buyer who bought several items, so fair enough. I thought I'd give him a good deal on this occasion. I probably should have kept these for myself because I think I do need the exercise. These are a pair of what they call Indian clubs. They could well be antique, well certainly vintage, but they were very popular during the Edwardian period and were used as exercise clubs, or you could even juggle with them, whatever turns you on. They're probably beech, but they're definitely a hardwood. They've got a lovely golden antique patina and are very tactile. So again, I always pick these up when I see them, and you can pick them up for a song. And I achieved the asking price of £44.55, which is another example of dropping the price down 1% per week. I would guess that these started at £45 asking price. Here we have a modern piece of design. It's an artist's easel. Now, one thing you need to be careful of when you sell these is that they have the centre clamp to clamp the canvas to the actual easel. I have sold one in the past where I sold it as a working easel. The buyer received it and quite rightly returned it because they got nothing to clamp the canvas down to. So fair enough, I took that on the chin and refunded them in full. It's a good quality easel, solid in construction, folds down flat, and I achieved an asking price of £19.75, which you might think's low, but that's a decent price for them. They don't go for that much money. This is the last but one item. It's a pair of antique solid brass candlesticks. They have some dints and dents, and if you do turn them upside down, you can see age-related wear. They're slightly more decorative than the other pair of more recent brass candlesticks I showed you, and I actually think these were probably ecclesiastical in provenance. In other words, they probably came out of a church or similar. I took an offer of £15, which is low given they're a pair of antique brass candlesticks, but at this time of the year, it's all about getting the money in your back pocket to go out sourcing over the summer, ready for the season to kick off again in the autumn. Here's the final item and a piece of solid working stock. It's a brass letter rack. What attracted me to it was the steam engine or the traction engine on the front and the Welsh dragon and the name of the fair, the steam fair or traction fair in Wales that this was sold at. This type of brass item doesn't sell for a lot, and I took an offer of £13. However, it's another example of decorative, affordable, functional, so I knew it would sell. So there you go. Plenty of sales this week and some good prices and also some good deals for buyers. And that's what it's all about. It's part of the game. If you've enjoyed this video and you would like to see more films like this, please like, comment and subscribe. And apparently, by sharing this video, it really helps grow the community. As ever, if you're a new subscriber, please let me know roughly where you're from in the world and I'll add you to our digital subscriber map. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.